All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's episode 4 of the Last One, Fast One podcast. We got a great guest on tonight. NCAA, two-time NCAA champion, former national high school record holder, Olympic trials qualifier, and the list just goes on and on. It would take me forever to keep reading all these. So welcome to the show, Jacob Molacek.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be a part of this.
Yeah, so let's just start off with what's your introduction to swimming, and how'd you get into swimming?
Gosh, introduction to swimming. So there I was, a little 5-year-old at the local rec pool. My brother and sister were lifeguards at a place in Lincoln called University Place Pool, and I was a pool rat. I love just getting sun and just going and playing around with my friends and doing stuff like that. And there was one day where the head lifeguard came up to me and she's like, "Hey, we have an opening in our team, and we really need someone to come help us fill in for a relay spot for our city rec meet at the end of the year or at the end of the summer." And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And she's like, "Well, you can't swim across the pool." And I was like, "Don't worry, I got this. I'll figure it out. I'll do it." And so my brother and sister were involved with swimming for quite a while. They swam high school at East, and my parents at that point were kind of just like burned out of it. They were just like, they did all the club stuff, and they're like, "God, we just really hope he doesn't choose swimming as a sport. Maybe he'll hate it." And my first practice, I went there, and my dad told my mom, he's like, "Nah, he's gonna hate it. We're gonna be good. We're gonna be smooth sailing. We don't have to do this anymore." And I no more than got on my first practice, and I go, "That was fun. I can't wait to go back." And that was kind of how it all started. And I started swimming rec, and the following fall, I got started at Heartland Aquatics here in Lincoln and started swimming year round. And from there, it kind of just took off. It was always kind of something that calmed me down. I was kind of a fussy baby, and my mom always would tell me, like, the only way I could get you to calm down is if I put you in the bath. And that was like kind of my frequency. It's always been the water. So that was kind of how I got my start, and I gradually started to phase out baseball and karate. I did those sports as well when I was a kid, but swimming kind of always seemed to be the sport that tripped my trigger the most, that I found the most challenging and competitive. So
Gotcha.
that was a little bit about how I got my start, at least. It
Yeah.
seems forever ago. I guess that was 21 years ago, but
Right. So how old were you, do you think, when you first started swimming on this rec league?
I was 5 years old. So I
Okay.
started swimming in summer of 2001, if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
Dang. There
Yeah.
we go. And what age would you say like you really started like getting serious, like when you started doing the year round thing like you talked about?
So I started swimming year round HLA when I was 6. So I had another year where I was kind of still like playing baseball and doing karate and stuff like that. And
Gotcha.
about 6 was when I started to kind of transition to being more of a full-time year-round swimmer. But I was still doing a lot of different things, a lot of different sports like that. And up until about 8 years old, that was when I kind of stopped doing all the other sports and just focusing solely on swimming and just delving into that community, into that skill set. So, I definitely miss a lot of those sports, but at the same time, it's a lot easier to just get in the pool and just kind of do your thing.
Right, right. So you're from Lincoln?
I am from Lincoln originally.
Gotcha. So you swim for, say, HLA, is that right?
Yeah, I started swimming at HLA. I kind of bounced around a bit. So I started swimming at HLA, and then I moved to another club called Lincoln Select
Okay.
when they first formed back in, I think, 2008. So I was from on HLA from like 2002 to like 2007, 2008-ish, and then I
Okay.
transferred to that club. And then, yeah, I've been around a bit. Let's put it that way.
There you go. And then when did you like really start having like success? Like, was it right off the bat, or when did you realize like you're a lot better than the other kids in the pool?
Well, so when I was 8 and under, actually, that was kind of when I first started really noticing, at least I kind of had a talent for it, and that I can kind of pick it up a little bit more than most. And uh, that was kind of when I would say that I really started to get more entrenched in the swimming world. When I was 10, I think it was like I was like top 5 nationally in a bunch of different
Okay.
events and stuff like that. So that was kind of like a 10 and under wonder kind of deal.
There you go.
And that was when I really started to notice that, this is not only fun, but I'm really good at it. And so
Right.
I kind
Yeah.
of started to take it more seriously and train more. But yeah, I guess I always kind of caught it naturally.
Right.
I went from the first summer I swam rec to not being able to swim legal butterfly to the next summer, I think getting second at our city league.
Okay.
So,
There you go. Yeah.
so
It's
I don't know. It always kind of came
yeah.
naturally for me.
Gotcha. And did you say you got older siblings?
Yeah, I have a older brother. He's a surgeon out in Oklahoma now, and then I have
Okay.
an older sister, and she's here in Lincoln as well. So
Gotcha. And were they swimmers as well, you said?
yeah, they swam at Lincoln East back when Greg Fleming was the coach. So
Okay.
they were way, way back in the day. I think my brother graduated in like 2000 or 2001. So he was
Okay.
way,
Gotcha.
way back.
So you're swimming the club. When did you first start swimming high school? When did you swim freshman and sophomore, or was it just your junior year you got into it?
No, so that's a funny story. So I was homeschooled basically for most of my life, actually.
Okay.
So I didn't start off my first 2 years of high school swimming high school because I was just doing online schooling, right? And so I was planning on going to Southwest, but Lincoln is a weird town, and they were like one of 2 towns in like the entire country that didn't accept my accredited like online high school credits. So I
Gotcha.
was like, okay, if I want to go to a high school, I can't do it in Lincoln. Otherwise, I'm going to have to repeat a bunch of different grades. So it just kind of worked out. My brother was going to UNMC in Omaha, and he had an apartment there. And it just kind of worked out that my junior year, we decided, and really it was me because I thought at that point I really needed a little more socialization to just get used to the real world and be prepared for college if I was going to continue to progress and think towards college swimming. And so I ended up getting an apartment or living with my brother in that apartment for 2 years there while I went to Creighton Prep. And he's probably one of the toughest roommates I ever had. So
So you're in high school, and your parents live back in Lincoln, and you're all
yep.
the way in Omaha,
Yeah.
training or you're swimming for Creighton Prep.
Yep.
And how did that first year go? Your junior year.
Well, the first couple months were, I mean, it was a shock to the system, needless to say. I mean, going from homeschooled to being in a high school and then trying to compete on a high school team and just dealing with all the other stuff that people that age deal with, it was a lot to adjust to. But it was just one day at a time kind of attitude, just taking things step by step, process by process. And I think that was effectively for me, that was when I kind of started to learn that skill of just taking things bit by bit. But my junior year went really well.
Gotcha.
I actually kind of took off that was like one of my big breakout years. I think that's just, I owe a lot of that to the team atmosphere that Tom Beck and Creighton Prep created for me. But I'm trying to remember, I think I set like, I don't know, 4 or 5 state records that year, and I won 4 gold medals, and that was kind of the beginning of that, I guess, golden era for me.
Right. Yeah.
So you go on to junior year, 5 records. So how many senior year? I mean, because Nebraska State Record Board, you look on that thing and you've got almost all of them.
Talk about the national high school record. It was your senior year, right?
Yeah.
And because I remember watching this thing. I was probably I was probably in 7th grade or 6th or 7th grade, and you said it in the prelims, right?
Yep.
So I actually remember I was watching on my computer. I had the live stream going. I was like, this is crazy. This guy's from Nebraska. So talk about setting that national high school record and like what that was like and like the attention you got from around the United States.
Man, that was a heck of a journey. So the year before, it's kind of weird how my stroke, I guess, proficiency kind of changed throughout my career. But before I got to high school and before I started swimming for prep, I was mainly a backstroker. And that summer that I was getting ready to go to prep, I went to a junior national meet and I actually got 4th in the 100-meter breaststroke. And my coach was like, Tom was like, wow, like you're a good breaststroker. We should really explore this. And so I started developing my breaststroke that whole junior year. And I think I was like 55-0 or something. So I would have broken at that time, Dave Anderson's record was 56-1. And so I would have broken that record. I think I did break it in a dual meet. I was like 55-9 or something, but I ended up going 55-0 at our LSC meet. And I remember watching, it was, I think it was Connor Hoppy, Nick Silverthorne, and someone else. I don't remember his name, but they all went 53-6 at California State High School. And I remember saying to myself, I want to beat that. Like, I want to beat these California kids, and I want to show basically the country that some dude from Nebraska can not only compete with these kids in Florida and California, but he can beat them. And so that was kind of my goal for the whole off season in the summer going into my senior year. And I was working my breaststroke. I kind of actually completely retooled my stroke that whole summer and ended up getting, I think, like 5th or 6th at junior nationals again. So I did really well. I dropped another 2 seconds in that long course. But leading up to that, I wrote it on a piece of paper and I gave it to Tom and I said, this is what I want to do this year. I didn't say anything. I just gave him the piece of paper. I folded it up and he looked at it and he goes, all right, let's do it. And so that whole year was basically me just trying to take my training to another level and just trying to pace things way better and just trying to focus on the details of my race and all that, getting stronger, getting a little bit more fitness in the gym and stuff like that. And so when the race came, actually the day of the race, I kind of started to, I guess, distance myself from the record and just focusing on it just to kind of not put so much pressure on it. And the day of the race came, the first day of state came, and I just remember being like super nervous, just like, oh my gosh, this meet is here. Everything you've been working for, it's here. And I ended up starting off the meet really well with my 200 IM. I was like 145 or something like that, which was a pretty big drop for me. But I was still really nervous going into that 100 breaststroke. And at right before the breast, there's always the 2 free relay right before that. And so I was getting in the pool warming up for the breaststroke while the prelims 200 free relay was going. And one of our, I guess it was one of the prelim swimmers on that relay flinched on the start and they called disqualification. And they had to review it because there was a flash. And so I just remember my coach coming up to me and just being like, don't worry, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Because I was going to be on that relay the next day. And it was like, another one of my goals was to go 6 for 6 gold or 6 state records with 4 gold medals. That was kind of my goal for the state meet. And so it was like a wild kind of course of events that this whole crowd at Devaney was cheering on the fact that prep got disqualified. You know, it was the collective, we hate prep, yada, yada, yada kind of story. And they ended up reviewing the disqualification and they overturned it. And they said there was a flash, prep's back in the race. And the entire pool erupted in a chorus of boos.
Right.
And I just remember sitting there next to Tom and he's just shaking his head and he looks at me and he goes, I want you to show them, or I gotta word this properly. He said something along the lines of show them, or hold on. It was a really profound statement. It was along the lines of, I want you to see if they cheer as loud for a national record as loud as they just booed us.
Okay.
And I just remember hearing that and it was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this for my team. And so I got up on the blocks and it was like in that moment, everything just kind of vanished. You know, those races that people talk about where you just tune everything out and you just go. And it was like, it's exactly how it was. I don't remember that race. I just remember touching the wall and just seeing the time and seeing everyone go crazy. And that was a heck of a moment. That's for sure.
So you didn't start swimming high school till your junior year. So like my only question is, what did like the recruiting process look like for you? Because typically they start sending you like in that summer.
Right. So I was still getting like recruiting mail as a sophomore. They could still see my times, but I just wasn't as well, I guess, known just because I didn't have any high school to really back it up. But I still was going to junior national meets and stuff like that. So I was still getting some exposure and stuff along those lines. But really the high school was when I started getting a lot more looks. I was, instead of getting letters from, smaller schools, it was Auburn, it was Stanford, it was Michigan, Ohio State, like a lot of these different schools. Actually, one of the Auburn coaches visited me during a dual meet at Millard South, and it was like a really cool thing. It was like, okay, now I'm starting to kind of feel like I'm getting a lot more exposure and stuff like that. But it was fast and furious, the recruiting process after I got into high school. It was like amplified like tenfold.
Mm-hmm. And what was, going back to that record, what was the previous, do you remember how much you got the record by?
It was Andrew Selskar's record, and he was like 53-34 or something.
Okay, so you took a nice chunk out of there.
Yeah, I think I was technically the first swimmer, or first 18 and under swimmer under 53 seconds in the 100 breast.
Gotcha. So yeah, Luke was talking about the recruiting process. Were you I know you went to Auburn to start. Were you committed before your senior year to go to Auburn?
No, see, that's a weird thing that kind of started my maybe freshman, sophomore year in college, was the early commitment from men. Usually it was the girls that would commit early, and the guys would usually wait till their senior year. But something kind of changed where every guy started to really want to take trips their junior year.
Right.
And they had to kind of retool everything. But for me, I didn't commit until October of my senior year.
Okay. Gotcha. So, and what was it that stood out about Auburn that made you want to go there?
Honestly, it was like my dream school.
Yeah.
I had grown up watching like the swimmers like Cesar Cielo and Fred Bosque and those kind of guys. And I was like, that's the kind of swimmer I want to be. I want to swim for Auburn. I want to go fast.
Auburn, Auburn still has the 2 free relay record, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know how that record still exists, but it was in the era of the suits, and you had Fred and you had Gideon Lowe and all those kind of guys that were on it. It's a fast record. It's faster than people think.
Right. So, all right. So let's transition into your first year at Auburn. You're coming off the national high school record. You're probably at, was the national high school record like kind of the all-time high in high school for you?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah. So what's that like going from that to going to Auburn where you're swimming with the big dogs now?
Oh man, that was a big transition. I'm not gonna lie. It was coming off, like you were just talking about, coming off a big high like that. I almost had kind of felt like, well, I just did everything I wanted to do, and it took me a while to kind of transition my thinking to high performance in college. And that was one of the big wake up calls, was not being the big fish in the little pond anymore, but being a big fish in a really big ocean. And racing guys that are Olympians and competing against guys that are NCAA champions every day. That was a big wake up call for me, and just to kind of get my head in a different form of thinking and just really start pushing myself to the next level. Auburn was a tough challenge for me. I mean, the whole time it was, but that first year especially was very, very difficult in terms of transitioning different types of training, just getting used to college, getting used to a whole new different system, and just a whole new different way of competing. A dual meet in high school is a lot different than a dual meet in college, where you're basically competing against every single meet guys who are Olympians and, world record holders even. So it's definitely a wild transition period just to kind of get used to.
Right. And what are NCAAs like your freshman year in 2015?
So my freshman year was kind of marred with just transitioning. That was really the biggest thing, getting used to just the unbelievable forms of training. I mean, it was crazy, some of those sets that I would do, but really I was struggling hardcore my freshman year, dual meets and everywhere. I just couldn't really get the hang of it, and I was really overtrained. And I think we had a dual meet in like the middle of January. It was against Mizzou, and I was swimming really slow, and my coach just came up to me and was like, I'm resting you until we get to SECs, which was like 5 or 6 weeks away. I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing free fall taper. And so I rested for like a month and a half. And I ended up having like a huge breakout meet at SECs. I qualified for NCs and the 2IM, the 53, the 100 free, and the 100 breast. And I just like had a really great kind of breakout into the scene as a freshman. And so I was riding really high going into that first NCAAs and trying to continue to kind of build off of that momentum that I had just kind of like gathered really quickly. And I was way too overcooked. I was really overrested, and NCAAs was a little rough my freshman year, but it was a great experience. It was in Iowa City, and a lot of my good friends came to watch, and Tom even came to watch. And I think that was probably one of the best learning moments for me, is just kind of getting used to being like, okay, it's not going to come easy. It's not going to be like it was in, at state, where you could just kind of come in and beat everyone and be the best. You got to really work at this. So that was leading up to NCAAs 2015. I had a lot of high expectations. I think I was seeded like top 10 in a couple events. So I was hoping to score and didn't quite get there, but had some pretty good relays. And I think I came away with 4 All-Americans. So.
Okay. Gotcha. And what's a pre-race routine look like for? I forgot. I skipped over this question. My good friend Eric, he when I was a freshman, he was a senior, so
okay,
he graduated in 2015. But he wanted me to ask you. I don't know if he's just playing with me or if this is true, but I'm going to do it. Shredding the air guitar behind the blocks in high school.
Oh yeah. So I still have that little roller stick. It's like a massage stick.
Yeah.
And I would always have my headphones on, and I would be jamming out to some sort of metal and just playing on my little roller stick and just jamming out.
Yeah.
I was kind of crazy in high school. I would get really animated on deck and just have fun, and I'd be like pretending to sing and all this different stuff. And I was well known for my antics in high school of just being like crazy and just all over the place with music.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I had to hit that one because I realized that Eric would have been mad at me. So you're coming off the NCAA's 2015. What's 2016 look like? Are you still all in on Auburn?
Yeah, I actually doubled down even more because my coaches came up to me and they're like, I think you had a great year, but we just need to take it to the next level. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do everything perfectly this year. I'm going to eat 100% clean. I'm going to go above and beyond in terms of training. I'm going to basically just do everything I didn't do last year, because it took me a long time to transition. And in a lot of cases, I was just kind of like trying to survive and stay afloat for that first bit. But I ended up staying in the summer, and I didn't take any time off going from the NCAA meet to off-season training. And I was doing doubles every day. And I got to the point where I was so overtrained. I was having severe like anxiety attacks. I was like having hormonal issues. My hair was falling out. I was a mess. Like I had insomnia. I was severely depressed, and it was just not good. So I ended up having to go back home to get my wisdom teeth out. And I ended up staying back home for about 2.5 weeks, which it was a needed little reprieve. And I ended up going back, and the summer was rough that summer. I did not have a good summer, but I was still all in, and I was still focused on making this the best it could be. And I was solely determined that it was going to work at all costs, basically. And sophomore year started off pretty well. I think it started off better than I guess I remembered, but it went pretty well to begin with, and then it just kind of started to slowly take a turn for the worst. The team atmosphere really started to kind of devolve, and the coaches weren't really listening to me in terms of different things that I needed, and just of how I like my body operates and stuff like that. And I just got in a really dark place, and SEC was really rough my sophomore year. I did not do well at all. And at that point, I had finished with the conference meet, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to continue to swim at that point. I was just in a really bad place, and I needed to just take some time to just figure things out. And I didn't qualify individually for NCAAs that year, so I was kind of like, okay, well, they won't even probably take me to the meet, so I'll just have this time to kind of figure out where I'm going in my life, basically. But they ended up actually taking me to the meet, and that was where I had a bit of a rebound. I think I split 18 or something on the 2 free relay again. So I was kind of back to where I was previously in terms of the sprints, but I was still really off in some other events. But I still ended up getting 2 NCAA All-Americans, which was making the best out of a bad situation. At that point, that's all I was trying to do, was just make the best of a bad situation.
Gotcha.
So NCAA's finished up, and again, I wasn't really sure if I was going to continue to swim. I really had to think about what I was going to do. And really, it wasn't until about probably 2 weeks before the semester ended that I decided that I was going to leave Auburn. And I ended up leaving and deciding that I was going to take a gap year just to figure things out, since the NCAA allots you 5 years to complete 4 years of eligibility. So I figured that would be a good use of my time, and just to see if I could even enjoy swimming again and have fun with the sport. So
yeah. And on that, so you take that gap year. So I saw it, you swam Olympic trials in 2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you come off that, and then you take that gap year. Who are you training with on that gap year?
So that gap year, it was kind of a mishmash. It was mostly Tom, but that period of high school that he coaches prep, it was me.
Okay.
It was actually me doing most of the training, and I was writing all my own sets and stuff like
Really?
that. Yeah.
And I saw it. Did you have a pretty good year that year? It looks like your times were pretty solid on that off year.
Yeah, no, that was one of my best meets ever, was that sectional meet that I went to. It was one of the best meets I think I've ever had in my life, and it just a combination of just focusing on really good technique and just kind of having the ability to do stuff that really fit me, and just kind of have that freedom to create my own kind of program, I think really helped just kind of get me to the next level. And so that was a really big moment in my career, just kind of transitioning to the next part and focusing on how am I going to get to the next level. And I had some really big drops. I still don't know how it happened, because I was convinced I was out of shape and I was going to swim so slow about like 3 days before that race. I was feeling terrible and in a huge taper funk, but it ended up paying off. So
absolutely. And are you looking to transfer at that point, in that off period, or you get your name in the portal? What's that look like?
So back then they didn't actually have transfer portals. It was a lot more convoluted. You actually had to go through like the compliance office and the head coach to get permission just to get released and to leave the team, basically. Okay. It wasn't like it is now, where you can just put your name in and be automatically able to transfer anywhere. So after Auburn happened, that summer I swam Olympic trials, and I ended up not resting for the meet just to get some experience. So I swam really bad. But it was a lot of fun. It was great just being on deck and just being at Olympic trials. It was an incredible experience, and I really attribute that to kind of the metamorphosis of getting the fun of swimming back.
Right.
That was the meet where it was like in Omaha, just around all these stars, and just the way Omaha always dressed the meet up. It was like,
right.
I almost kind of got my confidence back and just got like that fire back in my belly. And so that summer I started talking to NC State a little bit and talking to a bunch of other schools, and I ended up taking a recruiting trip to NC State in August. And then I ended up committing there 3 weeks later, in that September of 2016. So I was already at that point, by the time that sectional meet rolled around, I was already committed to NC State, and I already kind of had a direction of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to focus on. And at that point, it was like a no-brainer. NC State was a sprint powerhouse. They were sprint freestyle, which I really loved, and that's kind of always where my heart led me, was the sprints. And with guys like Ryan Held and Justin Ress and a bunch of other Olympians, it was a hard thing not to take up. So hard to not want to go there.
So you take, what does the training look like at NC State? Y'all are so obviously you're saying sprint freestyle. What other events did you swim and train for?
So at State, actually, my first semester, I kind of did everything. I was like training to be like 100 IM, 200 IMer. That was the way that their whole training was laid out. And I kind of started to focus a little bit more on the sprint free the second semester when there was a little bit of a gap that the team needed in terms of being filled for like the 8 free relay, the 4 free relay, and the 2 free relay. And that was kind of when I started diving more into sprint free. But for the most part, I tried to kind of stay versatile throughout my entirety of NC State. I kind of trained for everything, including the 100 breast, the 100 back, the 100 fly, the 2 IM, 200 free, all that kind of stuff.
So then so for NC State, you go to ACCs in 2018. What events do you swim there, and like times? How are you feeling? How'd it go?
So that my junior year was really good. It was kind of like a revamp year where I felt like I had some mojo back, and I was swimming fast. I was having fun. I was doing well. But that year we kind of experimented with not resting me for NC, so I didn't sell out fully. Because at that point, mid-season, I had a time that was probably going to be safe enough to get me into the meet, so they weren't too concerned about it. But that they under-rested me, so I had a little bit more in the tank for NCAA. So I went in and I was not fully rested, and I'm not gonna lie, that first day, 2 days, I got pretty punched in the mouth. I wasn't really prepared like I normally would be in terms of being tapered rested. I didn't shave down, anything like that. And so those first couple days were real tough. I'm not gonna lie. I was not on my game, and I was having a little bit of a tough time. But I just remember my coaches came up to me and they're just like, every day we're gonna get a little bit better. Every race is gonna be better. You're gonna get more rested as the meet goes on. Be patient. Your team's behind you. Just relax.
So you're feeling like, oh, go for it.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going on to something else. So you continue.
Oh no, you're good. I was gonna continue with yeah. So the third day came. It was the 100 breast, and I swam not so good in the morning. I didn't make the A final, and I just remember being incredibly frustrated. And I took a plastic water bottle, and just out of just being purely mad, I just chucked it against the wall, and it just blew up. Wasn't around anyone, so no one got to see it except Ryan. Ryan Held was the only one that actually got to see it, and he came up to me later and he's like, "Hey, dude, I just want you to know, I know things aren't going your way, but just trust in us." And he said, "Tomorrow night we're gonna have a lot of fun." And I don't know what it was, but just having Ryan come up to me and just voice that positive, positive bombardment, I think, was what kind of got me to get out of my mental funk. And it kind of helped my mind and body get more in sync. And that night I ended up winning the B final in the 100 breast. And it was kind of like things started to turn around. And then we ended up winning the 400 medley relay. And I won an ACC championship. So that was pretty cool that night. And then the next day was my big race. It was the 100 free. And at that point, there were so many people that were swimming fast. My time from mid-season wasn't safe anymore. So I was like, there was a lot of pressure to qualify for NC so I could get in the meet and score individual points there. And I was freaking out about it. And I was like, man, I got to just get a little bit faster. I just got to get like a couple hundreds faster so I can just get into that spot so I can get into the meet. And I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and I just thought to myself, man, I'm making this way too hard. I'm just going to go out there. I'm just going to make it. I'm just going to get the A cut. Like, stop making this so hard on yourself. So I got up on the blocks and ended up going, I think it was like 42.0, and ended up getting the A cut. And it was a big celebration and just a lot of just release from all the years at Auburn and just everything. It was just like, I felt so validated and vindicated. And it was just like, that was the moment. That was what I needed. And so that night we ended up going 1, 2, 3, 4 on the 100 free. And I went under 42 for the first time, which was pretty cool. And we set the American record in the 400 free relay too. So that was our first American record, was at ACCs.
Wow. So you guys go 1, 2, 3, and 4. You clear the board at ACC.
Yep.
Wow.
Y'all are, you know what? Take a step back for a second. It's actually funny you say like only one guy saw you. Paul has it down on the notes as tomahawking a water bottle.
Yeah.
It is, I don't know where Paul's finding this information, but he's got it.
Yeah, I tomahawked it into the wall, and he came up to me. He's like, Jacob, I want you to know we have total faith in you, and you're gonna get it tonight. And we're gonna have a lot of fun tomorrow. So
Yeah, you did a complete 180. That's insane. So then you had to NCAA's and 41.5 in the 100 free. Like, holy, what was going through your mind?
man, that meet, the NCAA meet was crazy. Yeah, so like after we set the American record at ACCs, it was kind of just gravy from there. From there, then I started to get a lot more rest, and we actually like fully tapered. So I was ready to go for NCAA's, and that was kind of a funny meet because I actually swam the 800 free relay on that meet, and I had not trained to do the 200 free, and I had not swam the 200 free at all that whole season, let alone I'd never been on an 8 free relay in college. And so Braden came up to me about 2 weeks before the meet, and he goes, listen, Jake, he said, we won this relay last year. We set the NCAA record. I do not want to lose that race again. And so he came up to me, he goes, I'm going to put you on it. And I go, okay. I was like, do you trust me? He's like, I trust you with my life. And so Braden put me on that 8 free relay, and it was kind of a secret. It was kind of like he didn't tell anyone. No one knew. They thought it was going to be another kid. And so that race showed up, and I was so dang nervous. I just remember being like behind the blocks with Texas next to me and Indiana next to me, and then all these great teams, and just thinking like, oh my gosh, like how am I gonna go ahead and like compete against all these guys? Like these guys are crazy, and I'm here, and I've never done this race in college or this relay in college. And I was going third, and my friend Andreas came up to me because he was anchoring, and he just goes, you're gonna be just fine, dude. We're here behind you. And it was like that kind of settled me into the meet and just made me realize like these are my friends. Like I'm swimming with my friends and competing with my friends. And that was what started the meet off. Was we ended up not only winning the 8 free relay, but we broke the NCAA record. And it was like totally unexpected considering that we had lost one of our main guys who went 130 the year before. And so that was kind of what set that meet in motion and kind of gave me the juice to get moving. But that last day on the 400 free relay and the 100 free day, again, I was feeling pretty punk. I was pretty tired. I had some big event load by that time, and that race came along in prelims, and I was in Ryan's heat. Again, it's kind of a common theme with Ryan and I kind of having really good mojo together. But I just remember thinking, all right, Ryan, you're going to have to carry me this morning because I'm going to need every bit of it. And in the morning, I felt absolutely terrible, but I ended up going 41.7, qualifying 6th for the night, which was pretty big for our team because we ended up going 3 up in that 100 free. And that was the first time NC State has ever had more than 2 people in an A final before. So it was kind of historic for us. But that night it was awesome. We had Anton win the mile. We had Andreas win the 200 fly. And then Ryan, Justin, and I went 2:35 in the 100 free. That was when I went 41.5. And after that, we ended up setting the American record again. And it was just like, it was kind of a storybook meet because, you know, it was kind of Ryan, Justin, and I were like the triumvirate of 100 freestyle that year. Every meet we went to, whether it was invite, conference, or just a random meet, we always would go 1, 2, 3, like almost all the time. So it was really cool to finish that 100 free off going 2:35, being in the same heat as him, racing guys like Townley Haas, Santo Condorelli, Caleb when he went 39 for the first time. That was pretty wild. So,
wow. And how many relays did you swim in that? What relays were you all on in 2018?
My junior year in 2018, I was on 5 different relays. So I swam the 2 medley, the 2 free, the 4 medley, the 4 free, and then the 8 free.
Wow. So you got a load. You got a full load at that meet. And talk about a little bit more about that 400 freestyle relay, which is still the American record today.
Yep.
And you split a 41:02. Absolutely cranking. What's it like to have an American record that's still the fastest in history today? How does that feel?
Man, it's a crazy experience. That relay, we actually went 2:44 twice. Not a lot of people kind of realize that, because I guess now they do things differently where it's only a finals relay. But back then, at least, it was prelim finals. So we actually swam that relay in the morning, and we went 2:44.7, broke that American record. I think we went 2:45.6, so we almost broke it by a whole second in the morning with a completely different lineup. It was still me, Ryan, and Justin, but we had another kid. His name was Mark, who was from Iowa, actually. And so it was a pretty big deal. But that morning relay, when we broke the American record the first time, Braden came up to us and he's like, guys, listen, be safe. Let's just make it in the finals, qualify like third, save it for tonight. And so, we get up on the blocks, and I see Ryan take off, and he turns at the first 50, and he flips at 19.5, and I go, that's not taking it easy, all right? And so Ryan's barreling into the wall, and I'm going second at this point. So I'm like, okay, well, if Ryan's going to go fast, then I sure can't go fast, or I can't go slow. And so I split 41 like 08 in the morning, and the second kid the Mark, who was taking Coleman's place to give Coleman a little bit of a rest for the morning, ended up going 42.2, and he was really fast. And Justin's like, well, I can't go slow either. So he ended up splitting 40.3, and we went 2:44.7 to start the morning off. And it was like, how did that just happen? Like, we just were kind of like playing around basically, and we ended up breaking the American record by a full second. That actually, we broke the NCAA record in the morning, because it was Texas's. They were like 2:45.3 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But at night, it was basically magic. We were rolling. Everyone was winning championships, and people were swimming so fast. And Bobby just came up to us, who is my sprint coach, and he just goes, guys, I'm not even going to use a watch. I'm just going to enjoy this. And so we got up on the blocks, and I just kind of remember turning my brain off and just savoring the moment, like watching Ryan finish, watching Justin finish, swimming in the same leg as Caleb, and wondering, wow, who's that guy in the blue suit that's starting to catch me? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't think I'm going that slow, and getting and touching and being like, oh, that was Caleb. That was why he was, swimming pretty fast. And then watching Coleman barrel into the wall and finish the meet off. It was surreal. I mean, it was one of the most vindicating moments of my career, because I had gotten a lot of heat for transferring from Auburn. A lot of people were, making comments and saying stuff like, he's done. He's not gonna make anything. It's over. And so there was a lot of pressure to just kind of almost validate myself for making the right decision to transfer. And it just kind of all aligned. It was one of those like storybook moments that you always remember. And to think that it still stands today, I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to finish the meet off with a 400 for relay. And,
right,
despite how fast NCAA's was this year, I think that was kind of the thing that I really noticed and appreciated more so, is just like that record was really special. Like, it was, everything just kind of came into a line, and I'll always remember it. So.
Absolutely.
Jeez. So with your that was your junior year. Your junior year was like just flying high. So like, how do you keep it going on senior year?
Yeah, so senior year, I kept the momentum up that whole summer. I had a really great summer, was training really well. Had one of the best summers of my life, really, just in terms of swimming, in terms of just mental place, like everything. And so that senior year, I was the second returning, I guess, right behind Justin in terms of returning top times for the 100 free. So I was looking to get an individual title that year, and, looking at cementing my spot in terms of college and challenging for that. And things were going really well. I was swimming really, really well that whole first semester. I was ranked number 1 in the country in November and in the 100 freestyle. And we were just having a lot of fun. I was just really enjoying swimming. I felt like I kind of finally got some pep to my step. Felt like I was really clicking with everything. My coaches came up to me it was that January, and they're like, Jacob, the way you're training, you're going to go 47 in the 100 freestyle. You're going to win NCAAs. You're going to win a championship. And then disaster struck about 3 days before ACCs, I ended up getting the flu.
Mm.
And that was devastating. I ended up losing like 10, 15 pounds in a span of like 10 days and had to swim the whole ACCs with like a fever and stuff. And that really, really hurt a lot.
Right.
So
That's rough.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you swim NCAAs or did you take it off just because it wasn't?
No, so that again, it was kind of a mess because like I got sick at a really bad time because we were also kind of in a tight spot for ACC championships, and so they kind of needed every point they could get. And I swam a full load of events, and I was very sick. I was not well, and it was not good for me mentally, physically, anything like that. And it really destroyed a lot of the confidence that I had been building up for that 2-year stretch from my gap year to the first year at NC State. And again, it was another thing where the 100 free, it looked like mid-season I was going to be fine in terms of like my placement. But a lot of people at conference swam really fast times in the 100 free, so I was kind of on the bubble. And at that point, Bobby was like, well, we really need to continue to kind of rest you for the last chance meet the next week so that you can get into NCAAs. And we kind of focused on that, continued to rest. And I went a couple hundredths faster, but with the way NCAA swimming is, if you go 9 100ths faster in like 100 freestyle, you move up like 5 places. So I ended up moving up enough so I was safe and I qualified individually for the meet. But I did end up swimming NCAAs my senior year. It was just kind of a little bit of a rougher time.
So like junior year was kind of like climax.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after college, so that was what, 2018, or was that 2019?
My senior year was 2019.
And were you done with NC State then? That was, or did you continue training with them for a little bit?
No, so after NC's my senior year, I wasn't really sure if I even was going to continue to swim. I was kind of like at a crossroads of like, do I continue to do this? Do I not? But I took about 3 weeks off and decided like, okay, I'm going to give it another shot. Let's focus on trials. Let's see if we can't make the Olympic team. And so that summer I kind of ended up doing a little bit of different training. Bobby trained me a lot differently, a lot lower. Everything was a lot lower volume, a lot higher intensity, and it ended up working really well. I went 48 in the 100 free, best time ever, and I went best time in the 50. So things were looking pretty good. And then I just continued to train with Wolfpack Elite until really COVID hit, and then that all kind of got messed up. So
yeah, talk a little bit about COVID. So COVID hits, you're still kind of in the full swing of training. You're swimming well. You're going 48A to smoking time. Where do you go from there? What's COVID look like?
Well, again, it was, at that point, it was like I didn't really know what was going to happen. So I ended up coming back home because I wasn't sure what was going to happen in Raleigh, what was going to happen with anything with swimming. So I ended up moving out of Raleigh when COVID hit, and I came back home. And again, I wasn't sure if I was going to, even continue to train. And so I just, I stayed fit. I stayed in the water here and there, and I lifted weights and all that. But it wasn't really until like September that I really started to commit and be like, okay, like we're going to train for trials now. So.
Gotcha. So you continue swimming. Are you in Omaha then when you're training for trials?
Yeah, it was honestly the second time around. I kind of actually basically trained myself almost the whole time this time.
Gotcha.
Tom didn't have as much involvement just because it was way harder to get up and just drive to and fro and stuff like that. But yeah, it was basically me swimming in a 3-lane pool with all the old ladies in the morning and doing all that kind of stuff, writing my own sets and all that kind of stuff. So
wow. Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of discipline to put yourself through hell and back and with no one else there except for the people doing 80-year-olds doing water aerobics in the deep end.
Yeah, and that's the second time I've done that too. So it was even harder the second time around.
Right. So you go to trials. So you go into trials, is it like, this is it, no matter what? Like, were you planning, basically?
I was starting to feel pretty burnt out by that time, honestly. Yeah. And I didn't really get, I probably way over rested. I gave myself like a month of taper, and I probably didn't need that much.
Right.
And so I was pretty overcooked by then. I was training really well. I was swimming really fast, but it just, with meets like that, it's just everything kind of has to click. But I was to the point where it's just like, I've been doing this for so long, and it starts to feel like a job, and that's not how swimming should be. It should feel like it's something you want to do. And so I was just planning on making that kind of my kumbaya, whatever happens. So
gotcha. That ends. What's it like not swimming? I saw you got into coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did that happen?
So right now I'm a assistant at Omaha, so I help coach the men's and women's team. But like I said, I wasn't really sure where I was going to go and what I was going to do after the trials. Things kind of got really wonky with just the world, I guess, really. So I was just like, man, I don't really know where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. And so I got a couple offers from a couple different high school teams in Lincoln. Actually, I was planning on moving out to Charlotte to coach at SwimMac. That was kind of going to be my next gig. I had it all lined up, but the coach there ended up stepping down, and so that kind of officially ended that endeavor, which was a bummer. I was really excited to move back out to the East Coast and get to work with a great program in SwimMac, but fortunately that kind of dematerialized. But like I said, I ended up having an old friend who I was training with when I'd come up to Omaha here and there, and he's actually on the team now, but his name's Cody, and he's like, yo, Jake, if you're not doing anything, we'd love to have you just like come help us out a couple times a week, just to give us some stroke technique work, stuff like that. So I called the head coach Todd up, and we started talking, and I was like, I think this is going to be like a good fit for me. Just, I have the ability to kind of be there when I want to be and not be there, and just have a little more freedom, because of that, I still was pretty burnt out with everything, and just kind of wanted to be away from swimming, but I wanted to be involved in swimming. So it was kind of like a weird position for me. But yeah, I started getting involved with the team, and this was our inaugural year for the men's program. So it was pretty big. This is the only men's D1 team in Nebraska, and it's the first time we've had a men's team and that's been D1 in 20 plus years in Nebraska. So it was a pretty big deal, and a huge honor to be a part of. But yeah, I started coming up and getting more involved and doing a lot more stuff. My role with Omaha it's mainly technique work. I don't really do a lot of any of the programming. I just do a lot of the technique work, a lot of culture building, I run the social media page. Actually, that was one thing that just kind of happened. So a lot of stuff that I don't usually do, more creative stuff that I've really focused on with Omaha. But we've got a really great team, and it's a great group of kids, and it's been a lot of fun. So
gotcha. Yeah, you guys balled out. I saw there were some fast times that team dropped.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Our inaugural race at our conference championship meet, we won the 2 medley relay.
Sweet.
So that was a pretty cool experience.
I bet. Paul, you got any final questions? I only have a couple, but I'll let you go first.
All right, so we're starting a new thing. I got this from another podcast I listened to, but I put my own thing on it. Who's the coolest person you swam with throughout your whole career? Like, it can be practice and a meet. Who do you think?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one, man. I mean, there's so many cool people. I'd probably have to say Ryan Held, and I say that because Ryan, not only is he fast, but he's a great friend and a great dude before he would ever be considered like any sort of swimmer. And I think that's what makes Ryan so unique and so special. Is when I first met Ryan, he like sent me a cat meme. And that was like how we got to know each other, was like through memes and just weird stuff like that. But he's just like a normal, down to earth dude that's just as good natured as you'd ever meet. And Ryan and I have always kind of had a special relationship in that sense, where we're fierce competitors, but at the end of the day, we just like to have fun and just, you know, enjoy each other's company, basically. So Ryan's probably one of the coolest dudes I've ever swam with or swam against.
Gotcha.
There's nothing like competing against a bunch of Olympians and world record holders and NCAA champions in practice every day. So
That's true.
You could swim with one person, dead or alive. Who would it be? I mean, so you can get laps with George Washington, or you can get him with Michael Phelps, whoever you want, man. Who you pick?
Swimming for anyone I want. That's a good question. I don't know. Let me think about that one. Man, that's a really good question. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably have to say honestly, alive just to train with. I'd love to train with Caleb.
Okay, cool.
Caleb Russell. I think it'd be a lot of fun just to, even if I could just ride his wave and just feel what it's like to go that fast.
Right. Absolutely.
And Caleb, he's a great dude too. So
yeah. Have you got to meet him a couple times?
Yeah, actually, well, Caleb and I, because just with NCAAs, we were in a lot of the same heats and a lot of the same events, so we would make small talk together. And dude's just as chill and as humble as you could ever meet. Like he's a great ambassador to the sport. Love that guy.
What was your favorite thing to like snack on at meets?
Snack on? I wasn't really a big eater at meets. That was always my biggest problem. I didn't eat a lot at meets. But if I was going to eat something, it'd usually be just like a banana or something along those lines. Something really easy. Yeah, I had a really kind of sensitive stomach. Like I'd yak really easily if I ate too much. So.
Oh no. And then what was your like pre-race like routine like? I know in high school was absolutely raving the air guitar. So
here, hold on. Let me interrupt you real quick. The fire alarms are going off in 1 minute, so I'm gonna put myself on mute and just have Luke finish this out.
Gotcha, man.
Oh no. All right.
Gosh.
It's all you. Keep talking now. Keep talking. Just give me some flashing lights.
Oh my goodness.
All right, he's gone. Rip. So yeah, you're raving on the air guitar. I highly doubt that, like, I'm guessing that changed once you went into college.
Yeah, I got a little bit more dialed back. I wasn't quite as unhinged, needless to say, but I still like to be animated and just be loose and stuff like that. But my pre-race routine, it usually just kind of devolved into the same warm-up, same songs, same way I would approach every race, and just kind of the walk-up and stuff like that. One thing that really I started to develop that was very unique, and this is, I don't know if anyone else does this, maybe this is just a weird me thing, but I really internalize a lot of my anxiety. I really hold it in. And so I found that for me, when I would get up behind the blocks, I would start externally talking to myself and just kind of calming myself down. So I'd voice it, and people could like hear me behind the blocks and be like, is this guy crazy? What's wrong with him? But for me, it was a way I could pair that external monologue with some sort of visualization of just like for example, letting like the air out of a balloon. And I could pair that with the external monologue, and it would start to slowly settle my arousal level. So I wasn't so far on the anxious side. I could be at that prime performance. That was one thing I really started to develop after Auburn, because I needed to find a way to just settle myself down a lot more. It's, being in a high intensity environment in college, I started to get really nervous before races. So that was one thing I started to develop in NC State that really helped a lot.
For sure. What's your favorite event to swim? Like, not necessarily the one you're the best at, but favorite one to swim.
Favorite to swim? 100 IM easily. I know it's not really an event, but I love the 100 IM. It's a great event.
Why do you why the 100 IM?
Because the 200 IM is way too long and it's really hard, and the 100 IM doesn't hurt that bad.
Yeah, I'm a 2 IMer. I can concur.
Yeah, the 200 IM, it's especially a long course. That last 50 free is just awful.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean the 100 IM, because you can it does not matter how fast you take it out. You're just going.
Yeah, you're switching strokes I mean, every 25. So you can just pedal to the metal. There's no strategy. You just race. I think that's why it's my favorite because it's not like the 50 where it's if you mess up a little bit, you're toast.
Yep.
It's such that if you do it, you've got enough leeway where you can kind of mess up here and there and still be okay. So that's one thing I really like at our conference meet is that the Summit League has the 100 IM, which I think is a great event. I don't know why the NCAA doesn't have it in there. I mean, imagine what kind of times would be thrown down. How fun that'd be.
I think I saw a video of Caleb Dressel swimming the 100 IM, and he dropped like it was in the 40s.
Oh yeah. Oh,
It was so fast. That was insane.
yeah.
Yeah, Paul's currently out, so I think we're pretty much good to go.
Cool, man.
Yeah, you got any closing thoughts?
No, honestly, I think for if any younger kids or just even kids that are still swimming that are watching this, I really just encourage them to take care of their mental health. I think that's a really overlooked thing. I think that's something in our sport that kind of doesn't get the coverage that it really warrants. And it's one of the hardest sports. It's one of the ones that gets kind of the least praise. And I think a lot of kids, especially in college, they're going through so much. They're dealing with everything. Focus on your mental health and don't be afraid to expect better from your coaches. And I think that's one thing that when as a coach now, because I had a lot of bad coaching experiences and I had a lot of people that were not very good at just being approachable and being human. And I think that's one thing that I've really had to, and not had to, but I've really focused on is just being a human for people, like I don't care what you go. I don't care if you turn into SpaghettiOs on the block. I just want you to be happy. And I want you to know that I care about you regardless of what happens in the pool. And so many times, like I would have a bad race and my coaches would just ignore me. They wouldn't talk to me. And I was just like, guys, this is not how you do it. And so, I make it a point to always let my athletes know and the kids I coach know that you are a person to me first. You're swimming. I'm telling you, I'm on the other side. All those bad races you have, you don't remember them. You remember the good times and you remember the people that you're around. And I think that's one thing that I really enjoy with this coaching experience is just being able to give back and being able to help kids that were in my position better deal with, different situations and things like that. And I don't know. I've just seen, I've had a lot. That's a whole nother conversation for another time in terms of the bad of swimming. This is a lot of the good, but there's a lot of the bad that, unfortunately I dealt with. But at the end of the day, that bad is what helps make you into the person you are. And so thankful for all my experiences, good or bad.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you for coming on to the podcast. It's a huge pleasure to have you. We're talking an absolute accredited swimmer in the college scene. Just crazy.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. This has been a blast. I'm just thankful that, I have this opportunity. I love your guys' podcast. I actually watched the last one with Nate. I thought it was great. So
Well, thank you.